What if I told you that expensive, ultra-sensitive ice rod you just bought is the single biggest reason you're missing bites? It sounds crazy, right? We've been taught for years that a softer tip, a more flexible blank, means more sensitivity. But today we're going to expose why that's one of the biggest myths in ice fishing. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will look at your collection of noodle rods in a completely different way. We're going to uncover the reason why your sensitive rod is actually making you numb to the fish. So let me ask you, do you believe a whippy rod is the absolute best for bite detection? Let's see if I can change your mind. For generations, the logic seemed simple. Fish bites, soft tip bends. You see it, you set the hook. The market is flooded with rods that bend in a U shape if you breathe on them too hard. They're marketed as the ultimate tool for light-biting panfish. We bought into it because it makes visual sense. We see the spring bobber dip or the rod tip twitch, and we feel confident. This belief is so ingrained that many anglers feel like they're fishing blind without that super soft tip. But we've been focusing only on what we see and completely ignoring what we're supposed to feel. We've confused a visual indicator with true sensitivity, and that confusion is costing us a lot of fish. First, let's redefine sensitivity. True sensitivity isn't about how much a rod tip bends. It's about how efficiently a rod transmits vibrations and changes in tension from the lure up the line and into your hand. Think of it like a guitar string. A tight string vibrates and makes a sound. A loose, floppy string does nothing. Your fishing rod is that string. Its job is to transmit the message, not absorb it. A super flexible tip is like a shock absorber on a car. Its primary function is to soak up energy, which is the exact opposite of what you want for bite detection. Now let's talk about the two main types of bites you get through the ice. The first is the easy one, the downward bite. This is when a fish grabs your jig and swims down or away. On a soft noodle rod, this looks great. The tip plunges down and it's an obvious signal. Almost any rod will show you this kind of aggressive bite. This is what sells those soft rods because it confirms our bias. We see it work for these bites and assume it works for all of them. But these are the least common type of bite, especially from educated or neutral fish. The real problem arises with the second and far more common type, the upward bite. This happens when a fish, especially a crappie or bluegill, inhales your bait and continues swimming forward or slightly upward. This action creates slack in your line. Your heavy tungsten jig suddenly becomes weightless. The fish hasn't pulled down, it has pushed up. And this is where your sensitive rod completely fails you. It's the silent fish killer, and you never even knew the fish was there. Here's what happens. Picture your noodle rod bent over from the weight of your jig. When that crappie swims up and makes the jig weightless, all that sensitive rod does is slowly unbend. It straightens out. There is no sharp tick or vibration sent to your hand. The rod's soft tip simply absorbs the change in tension. It's like a slow, quiet sigh. If you're not staring at that tip with 100% focus, you will miss it 9 times out of 10. And even if you are watching, it's so subtle you might just think a current moved your line. Let's transition to a rod with more backbone. Imagine a crisp, fast-action graphite rod. It also has a slight bend from the weight of your jig, but it's loaded with tension. It wants to be straight. The moment that fish creates slack, the rod doesn't just slowly unbend, it springs back. That release of tension is an event. It's a signal. You will feel that change in your hand as a sudden lightness or even a subtle thump as the blank recovers. You feel the bite before you even see it. You're feeling the absence of weight, which is just as important as feeling a pull. This brings us to the myth of the noodle rod itself. A noodle rod is essentially just a rod with a built-in spring bobber. It's a great visual tool, I won't deny that, but the blank of the rod, the part that's supposed to transmit feeling to your hand, is often cheap, dead-feeling fiberglass. The energy of the bite stops at the flexible tip. It never even has a chance to make it to your hand. You've basically been sold a fancy-looking strike indicator, not a high-performance fishing rod. Think about it this way. You're in a quiet room, and you're holding a long, flimsy piece of cooked spaghetti. Someone gently taps the far end. Will you feel it? Probably not. The spaghetti will just wobble and absorb the tap. Now imagine you're holding a solid, uncooked piece of spaghetti or a wooden dowel. You'd feel that same tap instantly. Your rod blank is no different. High modulus graphite is that uncooked spaghetti. It's a transmitter. Soft fiberglass is the cooked noodle. It's an absorber. So, what's the alternative? I'm not telling you to go out and buy a heavy-action broomstick. The key is finding a rod with the right action for the lure you are using. This is the concept of loading the tip. Your rod should have just enough power in the tip to support the weight of your jig with a slight, visible bend. It should be under tension like a drawn bowstring, ready to fire off a signal the second anything changes. Let's walk through a real-world scenario. You're fishing for perch in 20 feet of water with a small tungsten jig with a noodle rod the tip is bent way over. It looks sensitive. A perch comes in, flares its gills, and sucks in the jig without moving. There is no pull, there is no slack, it's just a subtle pressure change. The noodle rod's tip barely registers this. It might quiver, but it doesn't send a message. You feel nothing. You sit there, clueless, until the perch spits the hook and moves on. Now let's replay that scene with a quality graphite rod, properly loaded. The tip has a slight, crisp bend. That same perch inhales the jig. The water pressure from the inhale is enough to slightly change the tension on that stiff graphite blank. You feel it in your cork handle as a faint tick, or just a feeling that something is different. It's a texture change, that's the bite. You set the hook and the fish is on. That's the difference between going home skunked and filling a bucket. The core issue is that we've been marketed flex as a synonym for sensitivity. They are not the same thing. A rod's flexibility, or its action, relates to how it bends when fighting a fish and casting. It's important for keeping fish pinned, but its sensitivity comes from the material of the blank and its ability to recover quickly. A fast action rod, which has a stiffer backbone and a tip that flexes and then snaps back to straight very quickly, is inherently more sensitive because it transmits energy more efficiently. Let's consider the line you're using. If you're using monofilament, which has a lot of stretch, with a soft noodle rod, you've created a double dampening system. It's like trying to feel a bite through a bungee cord attached to a rubber band. The fish has to nearly rip the rod out of your hands for you to feel a solid connection. You've completely insulated yourself from the fish. This is a recipe for missed opportunities and frustration. A much better combination is a fast-action graphite rod paired with a no-stretch line like fluorocarbon or a light braid. Now, you have a direct line of communication. Every single thing that happens to your jig, hitting the bottom, brushing against a weed, or being inhaled by a fish, is telegraphed directly to your fingertips. There is no absorption. There is no delay. It's a raw, unfiltered connection to your lure. But what about keeping fish hooked? This is the main argument for soft rods. You need that soft tip so you don't rip the hooks out of a crappie's paper mouth. And there's some truth to that, but it's a crutch. A good angler learns to use their drag system and a light touch. A quality rod with a fast tip and a softer midsection will protect light line and keep fish hooked, while still giving you the sensitivity at the tip to feel the bite in the first place. You can't worry about losing a fish you never even knew was there. This idea of feeling the bite is often called tight lining. It's a technique where anglers hold the line between their fingers to feel for subtle ticks, or they use a very stiff rod to transmit everything. It's the ultimate form of sensitivity, and it completely bypasses the need for a visual indicator. What we're talking about here is finding a rod that allows you to tight line without actually having to hold the line. The rod itself becomes an extension of your nervous system. Think of it from an engineering perspective, energy transfer. When a fish bites, it creates a tiny amount of energy. You want a system that transfers that energy to your hand with the least possible loss. Every time the rod blank flexes unnecessarily, energy is lost. A stiff, responsive blank is like a copper wire for electricity. It's an excellent conductor. A soft, floppy blank is like a piece of rubber. It's an insulator. Another benefit of a stiffer rod is hook setting power. With a noodle rod, when you set the hook, the first thing that happens is the entire rod bends into a deep arc. A lot of your hook setting energy is wasted just straightening out the rod. With a faster action rod, that energy is transferred much more directly and instantly to the hook point, resulting in a solid hookup, especially in deeper water where line stretch is a factor. So, are all noodle rods useless? Not entirely. They can be effective in very specific situations, like dead sticking for lethargic fish, where you need a visual cue and the rod holder is doing the work, or for sight fishing in a shanty where you can see the fish take the lure and just need the rod to absorb the shock. But for actively jigging and trying to feel for bites, they are a massive handicap. The challenge for you is to unlearn what you've been taught. Next time you're in a tackle shop, ignore the rods that you can bend back to the handle. Pick up a crisp, light power, fast action graphite rod. Feel how it snaps back when you wiggle the tip. That's not a lack of sensitivity, that's responsiveness. That is the feeling of a rod that is ready to tell you instantly when a fish is interested. The final takeaway is this: stop watching for bites and start feeling for them. The most skilled ice anglers I know could fish effectively with their eyes closed. They are feeling for changes in weight, for subtle ticks, and for the texture of the bottom. Their rod is a tool for feeling, not a glorified bobber. By switching from a soft, absorbing rod to a crisp, transmitting rod, you open up a whole new world of bite detection. You'll be shocked at how many fish you've been missing all these years. So, to wrap it all up, the big aha moment is realizing that your super flexible, sensitive ice rod is actually a shock absorber. It's designed to soak up energy, which means it's literally hiding those subtle upward bites and pressure changes from your hand. True sensitivity isn't flex, it's the efficient transfer of information. By moving to a crisper, faster action graphite rod, you're not getting a less sensitive tool, you're getting a direct line to the fish, allowing you to feel bites you never even knew existed. This one shift in thinking can honestly be the difference between a frustrating day and your best day ever on the ice. Thank you so much for watching. If this blew your mind a little bit, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more videos that challenge the old ways of fishing. Now for the real question. After hearing this, are you willing to put your favorite noodle rod on the shelf and try something with a little more backbone? Let me know your thoughts and your go-to rod setup in the comments below.